Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Today I'm going to be flipping through and taking a look at the second edition Advanced Player's Guide. I just recently picked this up, so I haven't had a chance to read through everything thoroughly as of yet. This, I guess you could say, is sort of an early impressions video along with the flip through, so you can actually see everything that is included in here. I do hope to have a series of videos talking about the individual classes that are available in here, as well as maybe taking a closer look at the Ancestries and some of the other options. So there may be another series of videos coming out after this, but I will say this is one of the books that I was the most excited about when I heard it was something that Paizo was working on. The original Advanced Player's Guide, a lot of people viewed as being one of the best books for first edition Pathfinder, and it was the only other hardcover book that I used to own for Pathfinder first edition. After I ended up trading it away for some store credit towards, I think it was actually some Starfinder stuff, I started collecting the pocket edition, so the softcover versions of first edition Pathfinder books, and this was one of the first books that I intended to pick up once I started getting into that. So, the Advanced Player's Guide is a favorite, I think, for a lot of people, and like I said, I'm really excited to finally have a copy of it. This is the special edition version of it. The only reason I picked this up is because it was the only copy of the book that they had at my local game store. My local game store also does a loyalty program where you earn points based on the amount of dollars that you spend, and you can build those up towards some pretty decent discounts. And I actually had a fair amount saved up on their system, so it knocked the price for this way down, which is the only reason that I have it. I will say I do like sort of like the leather book sort of cover design to it with the gold lettering. It's pretty cool, and I love the gold Paizo logo on the back. But the actual contents of the book, thankfully, are the exact same between the standard edition and the collector's edition. The collector's edition also has two handy little bookmarks if you wanted to use those. I don't have them set to anything as of yet. They're just the way that they came in the book itself. So, like I said, we'll start our flip through here. And we'll try to go through this relatively quickly, hopefully. Like I said, I haven't had a chance to read through things very thoroughly yet. So I'm not going to talk too much about the classes or too many of the things in this video. That will be something that will save for when I can do the proper review. But we'll show you the different options that are available in here. The first thing we have are Ancestries and backgrounds. So we have some new Ancestries you can play, Catfolk, Kobolds, Orcs, Ratfolk, which are really cool, and the Tengu. You also have versatile heritages, so these are, you could think of them as sort of like a template that you can apply to an ancestry. So, for example, if you were an elf, but you wanted to be like half elf, half vampire, you could, instead of being like a high elf or like in one of like the ancient elves or whatever, you could be an elf with the Damphir heritage, so you're like half vampire. So we have here changelings, which are sort of mixed bloods with hags. The aforementioned Damphir, which is like a half vampire, so think Alucard from Castlevania. Then you have the planar scions, so those are like your Aasimar and tieflings. Then you have some new feats for the existing ancestry, so dwarf, elf, gnome, goblin, halfling, and human, as well as a new list of character backgrounds that you can add to the ones in the core rulebook, and some rare backgrounds which are sort of more specific and things that can actually be tied to a campaign's plot. So you may not want to have too many people in your group using those backgrounds, but they are available to you, and if nothing else, they sort of give you an idea of what types you could do if you wanted to create backgrounds that tie to the actual storylines. Classes, Chapter 2 gives us 4 new classes to play. So we have the Investigator, which sort of like uses their intelligence to learn about their enemies or learn about certain things that are going on, helps with social situations, stuff like that. And they get something equivalent to Sneak Attack, but it's based off of studying your opponent, and you use your intelligence instead of dexterity. Then you have the Oracle, which is a spontaneous casting class, which gets their powers granted to them. The Swashbuckler is a fighter type that uses light armor and does things with panache, which is actually an ability that the class has. And then you have the witch, which is probably my favorite one. They are a class that gains spells granted to them through a familiar, which serves like the go-between or the conduit from this like greater planar power. So it's sort of similar to like the warlock class from other RPGs, but it's actually, again, you have to have the familiar granting you the abilities. It's not, you don't get them directly from the source. You get them through this intermediary, and it just makes familiars more important, which I think is cool because they seem really underutilized, at least in any of the games that I've been a part of for the last 21 years. There's also going to be some new class feats and some new options for the classes that were in the core rulebook. And then we have our archetypes. So archetypes are really cool. They are sort of your combination of like multi-classing options, or sort of like almost like the prestige classes from the previous Pathfinder edition. But you take them in the form of feats, and they bestow sort of the abilities from the classes or the concept. I really like it in place of multi-classing or prestige class. I think it's a much better utilization of that idea. Then we get some new feats, general feats and skill feats, some new spells, and some new items. So, introduction here shows us the main ancestries that we can get, as well as some of their primary information like their ability boosts, ability flaws, and then we get the classes there, their key ability score, and then the secondary ones that are important to them as well. Then we have our heritages. We have the catfolk. I suspect a lot of people will make their catfolk characters and base them off of like the Khajiit from Skyrim. I know at least 2 people that would definitely do that. I haven't looked too much at the catfolk ancestry. I think it's mainly because I am like severely allergic to cats, so there's sort of that built-in bias. Kobolds, we have them as well, and they actually have sort of like these patron dragon types. So you choose like a dragon, and whatever one is part of your supposed bloodline affects things like your scale color. However, you can also take like heritages or some of the ancestry feats that actually give you abilities based on the dragon type that you choose. So again, sort of important there. Just again, kind of a cool way of really tying kobolds together with dragons. Then we have orcs, and then we have the rat folk. So the rat folk are even listed in here as, and I'm probably going to say this wrong, so I'm going to say it a couple different ways. They're both probably going to be wrong, but just bear with me. So you have the Y, so Y-S-O-K-I. So there's either the Y is silent and they're Soki, or they're Yoski or Yoski. Whatever it is, this ancestry also appears in Starfinder, and what's cool about these ones here in Pathfinder is it seems like a very early version of what we get in Starfinder, because like for their ancestry feats, for example, they get the ability to take cheek pouches, so they can store stuff in their cheeks as a way of like carrying them. Doesn't count, I don't think it can, so it doesn't count towards your bulk or anything like that. And then you have the early one, which allows you to just carry a fair number of light items. But if you take Big Mouth, you can actually carry up to 1 bulk. Now, in Starfinder, like this is a 9th level feat for Pathfinder. In Starfinder, it's just a core ability of the race, the Ratfolk race in that game. So it's kind of like, again, you sort of see the evolution in a roundabout way. And I just really love that. I think that that's just super cool. The Tengu, so our crow people, which they've been around for a while as well. And then we get into, again, our versatile heritages, which I talked a little bit about. The Damphir is probably my favorite one. I just think it's a really cool kind of idea. And so you get like their feats and everything. And like I said, it just replaces the heritage you would take normally with your ancestry. Then we get the Planar Scion, so we have the Aasimar. Then we have the Duskwalker. So I haven't read too much about those ones yet, but they seem kind of interesting. And then of course you have your Tieflings. So again, just awesome stuff there. I know people love Tieflings and Aasimars and everything else. Here we have our ancestry feats for the existing Ancestries from the core rulebook. Goblins have like extra squishy, reckless abandon, loud singer. So some cool ones there. Halflings, humans. Then we get our backgrounds, and then our rare backgrounds. So these are things like you may be haunted, returned, meaning that you've been brought back from the dead under sort of miraculous circumstances, maybe for a reason. So again, these are ones that are more influential, I think, to the storyline in a campaign. So they shouldn't be used lightly, but they are a cool option to have. And then we've got our classes here as well. Like so, I'm actually going to do a separate video going more into the specifics of each of the new classes. So I'm not going to discuss them too much here in this video, but there are some cool options in here, like the Investigator. One of the things I really like about the Investigator is they can take feats that allow them to sort of save their social interactions in such a way. So for example, this one here just reminds me of the show Columbo, which I used to watch a ton when I was younger. So whenever he, would wrap up his investigation at the end of an episode, he would always sort of, tell part of the evidence that he would have. And it would always seem like he just, didn't quite get everything right. And then he would turn around and say, oh, just one more thing, and then just completely destroy the person with getting everything all together. So just, again, little references like that, I always love to see. So yeah, just again, really, really cool stuff there. And then we have the Oracle. They're a conduit of divine power. So they don't get their power like through prayer or servitude. They just sort of they're sort of a conduit for greater beings to sort of channel their power through. I haven't read these too much yet, so I don't really want to say too much more because I don't want to be super wrong in this video. Swashbuckler. So like I said, these guys are really, really cool because they actually have an ability called Panache. So you have to do certain things in order to gain Panache, which is sort of like a state that you can be in. And if you have Panache, it gives you certain abilities that you can use or certain benefits or bonuses that you can get, including like a finishing move that you can do that expends your Panache, so you're no longer in that state. But it deals like extra damage, and it's a class. If you don't want to do anything in the standard way or the easiest possible way, you want to do everything with sort of like an extra flourish, which I think we all know players that are like that anyway. So this class is sort of built around that, and it's just a neat idea. And then we got the Witch. So this is probably my favorite one. I haven't read everything about it yet, but this is the one that I sort of like the most. Because again, I feel that familiars are always they're there, but they're really underutilized. But having familiars be like a very important part of the class, in fact, what grants you some of your core class abilities, I love that idea, and I just think it's just a really well done and interesting take on things like other RPGs might call them like warlocks or stuff like that. I like the way that they're handled in this a little bit better, because again, it's the familiar that's the go-between, instead of just directly having access to abilities granted by this greater being, which truthfully, if you were to communicate with them directly, would probably drive you insane or cause your head to explode or something. So yeah, I just really like that. And then they have some feats that you can take, like Cackle or Cauldron, which again, sort of stereotypical, but just kind of funny anyway. So yeah, that's a class I really want to look more into. Then we have our existing classes, some new options for them. So Alchemist feats. I love the idea of the Healing Bomb. So you can basically throw an healing elixir, and whoever it hits, they get healed by it. I think it's just kind of neat because I know I've had people try to do this in my campaigns anyway. So now it can be done because it's it's just an ability that they can take. So that I guess that sort of nails it, I guess, or makes it official. Then we also have like the Barbarian. So this one actually brings back the Superstition Instinct, which was in the playtest but wasn't in the core rulebook. This was actually one of my favorite instincts that the Barbarian could take from the playtest, because it's more like the original, like early versions of Barbarians and other RPGs, where they had this strong distaste or distrust of magic. So, for example, the Superstitious Barbarian they deal extra damage against spellcasting opponents, and they can also apply their resistance when they're raging, when they get to a high enough level, to spells or any sort of magical type damage that they may take. So again, I just really like that one from almost a historical point of view, but I'm glad it's finally back. And again, we just have our new feats. We get the Bard, which I haven't read any of these at all yet. The Champion. This is one that I'm a little on the fence about, because I don't like running games with evil characters. I've never been in one that went well, and even though I was running one for a while where I thought I had a pretty good grasp on how to run them, the players just honestly, thought that being in an evil campaign meant that they could just go around recklessly slaughtering things. And I ended up just giving up on that one pretty quickly. But this allows you to play like an anti-paladin or just an evil version of the Champion. Again, it's not my thing, but there are people out there that are looking for those kinds of options, so it's going to be great for them. There are new feats in here as well for the class that isn't necessarily required. I don't think they're all required for evil. Some, like, for example, some of these are actually for just the regular champion, which I think is great. So at least there are some options there for them. Cleric, there's also, again, you have like Vile Desecration. So there's a couple of evil options in there as well, but not a ton, which is, again, it's not my thing, but this isn't, like, not everyone's going to love everything about every book. So that's, I guess, my thing. The Monk, the Ranger. Ranger's always been one of my favorite classes, and I always feel that's super underappreciated or underutilized. But I guess that's maybe just my opinion. But I love the Ranger. Some stuff for the Rogue. Sorcerers bring us some new bloodlines, including like Genie, Nymph, Shadow, Psychopomp, which I feel like I should know what that is, but it being like 2 a.m. right now, and I'm trying to record this after being, up from like 8:30 in the morning, it's just not coming to me. But the Psychopomp, they're also the ones responsible for the Duskwalker heritage from Chapter 1. Just got some stuff for the Sorcerers, the Wizards. And then we get into our like animal companions, so they bring some new stuff in here, like crocodile, boar, saplings, apes, scorpions, which is kind of cool. Sharks, which would be very situational, but it's still kind of cool that they're there. And then some familiars, so some new familiar abilities, and then some specific ones like the imp, the fairy dragon, or the spell slime, so the colorful oozes that congeal from the essences left over from casting spells. They're extremely loyal to their masters, and you can select a spell slime familiar only if you can cast spells using spell slots. So, cool stuff there. And then we get into our archetypes. So again, I'm not going to go through all of these here, but I love the archetype system. So you have like the multi-class options if you wanted to mix classes, between two different ones or two or more different ones. But any archetype that you take requires you to take the dedication feat first, obviously, in order to access any of the other ones here. But you can't just jump from one dedication to another. You actually have to spend, I think it's generally speaking, you have to have 2 other feats from the archetype that you initially chose. So let's just say initially I was rogue, but I wanted to mix in some investigator stuff before maybe moving on to one of the other archetypes later on in the book. I wouldn't be able to go right to that, so I would go rogue. Once I reach 2nd level, I can take the investigator dedication feat, but then I have to take 2 more feats from this list before I can move on to, say, one of the ones later on. So I like that because you do have to commit at least somewhat to the archetype that you choose before moving on to something else. It's just better, in my opinion, than regular multi-classing in other RPGs, where I see it really kind of, in some cases, just heavily abused, where they take one level of one class because they get all the abilities that they want from that one level, and they end up having like 3 or 4 different levels, 3 or 4 different classes that they take. And I don't know, I never liked that idea, but this one I like the way that our archetypes are done a lot better. So we have our multi-class ones here, but then we also just have ones that are similar to what you might have for prestige classes going back to Pathfinder First Edition. So certain prestige classes that we see before make a return here. I don't know if Acrobat was one, but there's stuff like Archaeologist. Archer, I actually really like this one a lot, and I might end up, if I ever get a chance to play as a player for long term, I would probably take that one. But we have things like the Assassin, the Bastion, sort of like I think the Dwarven Defender or Defender in Pathfinder First Edition. This is sort of one of those that's just, it's not dedicated to a specific ancestry, which I think is kind of neat. So you have that, Beastmasters, Bounty Hunters, Blessed Ones, the Cavalier. The Cavalier was actually one of the classes in the First Edition Advanced Player's Guide, but now it's just sort of been turned into an archetype, which honestly works because it's sort of always felt like a combination of classes before anyway. Celebrity Dandy is one that's in here. The Dragon Disciple is actually really cool. It's one that you have to have draconic either ancestry or class features in order to even take. So you have to be a kobold with the dragon scaled or spell scaled heritage, dragon instinct barbarian, or a dragon bloodline sorcerer. I'm sure that if other classes come out in the future, or other ancestries come out in the future that grant you draconic type abilities, they'll probably be retroactively added to the Dragon Disciple list of availability. But it's still just really cool to have. Dual Weapon Warrior, Duelist. Duelist is kind of neat. Eldritch Archer, again, another one that I absolutely love. Sort of like the Arcane Archer from Pathfinder First Edition. Familiar Master might be a good one to take with the Witch. Gladiator. Herbalist, Horizon Walker, so again, one that used to be a prestige class. Linguist, Lore Master, again, the one that used to be a prestige class. Martial, another class type that I really like as well. Martial Artist, Mauler, Medic. Medic might actually make a really good NPC one, but it's great to have, again, just in case, because like for me, I always find that I typically if I get a chance to play, I typically end up playing a healer anyway, so that might be one that I take as well. Poisoner seems pretty cool. Ritualist, haven't really read too much about that one. Scout, I like that one as well. Scroll Trickster. This one's really cool because you can apply it to any class, but it allows you to use scrolls as if you were an actual spellcaster. So it gives you like bonuses to like tricking magic items, for example. But it's just, I think it's a really, really cool concept. I love that idea. Scrounger, Sentinel, Shadow Dancer, another classic prestige class. Talisman Dabbler, I haven't read that one yet, but I'm going to have to because that sounds really cool. And then we have Vigilante. So if you ever wanted to play Batman in Pathfinder, you can play Batman in Pathfinder. So yeah, this is literally just, having a Vigilante persona and some abilities around that, like a minion guy, safe house, quick change, which makes sense for a lot of superheroes. Anyway, cool stuff. Viking and weapon improviser. That sounds pretty straightforward. You just use improvised weapons, but you're actually good at them. Then we get our feats. So we actually get some new general feats, which there weren't a ton of in the core rulebook. So it's nice to see an expanded list there. You don't get a ton of general skills to begin with, but it's nice to have, again, just some more options there. And then we have our skill feats. We just have the whole list of them there. I love that artwork, actually. I think that's really cool. Skitter, I like Skitter. It allows you to basically crawl half your speed. but you can just like, you know, again, just crawl or skitter across the floor. I think that would work really well with like a goblin or kobold. Then we have spells. So just some new spells for the Arcane, Divine, Occult, and Primal lists. Some of these work really, really well with the new classes like Oracle and Witch that are in here. We get some classic ones like Enervation. I like that one. I like the fact that that one's back. Heat Metal, Ice Storm, Pummeling, Rubble sounds cool. Seal Fate, Wall of Flesh sounds like it would be something kind of gross. Vomit Swarm, I love this one because you basically just barf up a swarm of magical bugs. And the next time I go to run a Pathfinder game, it's only a 2nd level spell, so I will definitely be substituting out someone's spell and using that for sure. Some new focus spells for the classes that have access to them, including some new ones in here, like the Oracle and Witch get some new abilities that they can utilize. Then we have Rituals. So Rituals aren't like standard spell casting. They take more time to do, but they don't utilize like spell slots. So one of the ones I'm really happy to see in here actually is the spell Simulacrum, or the Ritual Simulacrum, because it's something that I had an entire scenario for an adventure designed around, and it wasn't in the core rulebook. In fact, it's just a spell that doesn't seem to be used too much in modern RPGs at all, but it's in here now, so I can redesign the scenario that I had for 2nd edition Pathfinder and actually get to use Simulacrum, which is great. You get things like Teleportation Circle, Word of Recall, Ward Domain, and then just the items. We have some new weapons that you can use, including a Sword Cane, which sounds like something that your investigator would just, you know, be perfect for. Tengu Gale Blade, Wakasashi, so there's definitely some cool items in here as well, some new adventuring gear, and then you get into some like treasure tables, alchemical items that you can use for your alchemist or just in general. Consumables. I kind of like the Oil of Unlife. I think that sounds kind of neat. And then some new items, like permanent items that you can use. I haven't looked too much at these either as of yet. I do like the slate of distant letters, so they're basically just like little, sort of like handheld chalkboards that are connected to each other. So even if they're separated by vast distances, if someone writes up to 25 words on one, it will appear on the other. So it's sort of a slow thing, because I think you can only use it once an hour or something like that. But you can use it for, again, just long distance communication, so nothing wrong with that. It's sort of like, you know, the fantasy version of early text messaging. And then you have like Wand of Overflowing Life, Wand of Hopeless Night, Wand of Crackling Lightning. I don't know, just again, some cool stuff in there. And then we get our glossary with just some common terms and our open gaming license. So that is my look at the 2nd edition Advanced Player's Guide, and even though I haven't gotten to the point where I feel comfortable doing a proper review as of yet, based on my first impressions, I will say that this is an amazing book, just from what I've seen so far. Like, for me, I think it's only going to get better the more time that I spend with it, but I'm really impressed with the options that I see in here. I love the new Ancestries, including the Rat Folk, and seeing the Pathfinder version versus seeing the Starfinder version, and feeling almost like it is sort of an evolution of that ancestry from one game to the other. I think that that's really cool. The versatile heritages are awesome. You know, the idea basically of having an ancestry template that you can put onto anyone is great, and you know, having like your Aasimar Tiefling or your Damphires, or even the Hag, the Changeling one, also is just, I just love that idea. And if nothing else, again, it helps just give you an idea of how you can handle doing those things if you wanted to make your own going down further on down the line, which works well in conjunction with the Game Mastery Guide, which gives you some guidelines for creating your own stuff as well. So even as a game master, I think there's some cool stuff in here. Several of the archetypes I think work well for NPCs, like the medic, or the improvised weapon master type of characters. So there's again a little bit of everything in here for everyone. The witch class is one of my favorite classes in all of second edition Pathfinder. I think it's super well done, and I'm really looking forward to exploring that one a bit further. So at this point in time, I highly recommend checking it out. I think it's, again, something that is going to be useful for pretty much everybody at the table. The first edition Advanced Player's Guide by many people is considered to be one of the best books for first edition Pathfinder, and I feel like that same thing can be said about the second edition version. So I think overall it is definitely worthwhile checking out and picking up. So in the near future, I will have some videos out detailing the new classes available in there. I may also go into more detail about the Ancestries available in there as well, to have a closer look at those. So that should be something that comes out hopefully within the next week or so, barring any sort of any other issue coming up. But let me know in the comments below if any of you have already picked up the Advanced Player's Guide. Have you been able to make characters out of it? Have you taken, what's your favorite feats that you may have taken out of it, or whatever characters that you've made, be it with the new Ancestries or backgrounds or classes. Just let me know how you've been able to use those books in your game, or if you're a game master, let me know if you've designed NPCs using the archetypes or some of the options available in here as well, because like I said, I think it's just going to be great for everyone. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Take care.